Good Friday. Anyways, today is Friday. um, I was waiting until today to do another video because I wanted to talk a little bit about Pluto. And there's some astrological things I can't remember off the top of my head. Um, and it's Venus Day, and but Pluto astrologically is in trine with one of the planets, and this mostly for me, anyways. So, what I wanted to talk about today is my experience with when Pluto conjuncted my sun in Capricorn back in January of 2008. And I know some people who are either getting ready to have this conjunction happen or are already in the process. So I just wanted to talk about it. Now, I study both Vedic and Western astrology myself. I do know that in Vedic astrology, most all of Vedic astrology does not look at Pluto, though there are some that do. Um, for me, I realize that I totally have to look at Pluto because I am very Plutonian, Neptunian, and Saturnian. So yeah, it was pretty trippy. And as I learn, as I learn, I keep growing, which is really cool. And I have so much to talk about Pluto, but in this video, I really only wanted to focus on what happened or the experiences that I had when Pluto conjuncted my sun. And this was way before I even started looking at astrology. So, um, yeah, I had stuff leading up to this from years before. I've been this year, 2016. I've had many cycles that I have been completing, which has been very awesome. And some of them go all the way back to whenever I was in childhood. And with the Pluto thing, though, I really want to stay focused here. So Pluto conjuncted my sun in Capricorn at the end of January in 2008. This was the year that we had the new president. And this year I happened to, at the time when this happened, I grew up a Christian. My family wasn't that way necessarily in the beginning. I'm the one that initiated going to church and becoming Christian and all that. And I was pretty religious. So, I was the type of person, I studied my religion. Excuse me. Anyways, so, I'm doing my thing and I'm studying, and I don't know what it was about that year. I mean, I do now in hindsight. Uh, I totally studied myself out of my religion. It was the weirdest thing ever. And the crazy thing about it was the spiritual stuff I learned years later. Um, I couldn't figure out why I never came across this stuff during 2008. So I know that life has its plans for us, and that sometimes the way it unfolds is a little different than what we think it should. I think a lot of that had to do with I was pretty egotistical before, so I probably would have just been ego spiritualist, I don't know. so so Pluto conjuncted my sun that year. So the first year I studied myself out of my religion, and then at the time I had already had fibromyalgia, so I already knew about that. I was pretty identified with it, let me tell you. And by the end of that year, we became homeless. So, like, my whole life changed and fell apart. What I thought was true for me, my religion, wasn't. I was pissed. Oh my gosh. I kept thinking of all those years I wasted and just all kinds of stuff. I'm sure if somebody watches this that has gone through the same thing can totally relate. Um, so I was mad at what I thought was God, and then becoming homeless, losing everything. I mean, literally losing everything. That was a big hit to the identity. And so I look at Pluto conjuncting the sun as It could be an identity crisis. It could be, hey, it's time to look at yourself, deal with yourself. That's what I had to do. It took me 8 years before I got to that point, though, to look at myself. Well, a little bit before that, I should say. So, okay, so for me, it being in my sign in Capricorn, it's going to be there for a whole 16 years. And so I kind of split that in half because the first 8 were really tough. And I didn't want to face myself. It wasn't until 2014 that I kind of started looking at, or I started looking at spirituality, not just kind of. It was at the end, like November, December of 2013, I had read Eckhart Tolle and watched some Bob Proctor videos and read one of his books. And then in 2014, started looking at more spiritual stuff, Eastern, and all kinds of stuff. And then last year in 2015, I was trying to learn about me, or love myself, accept myself, and I just wasn't getting it. I honestly was just not getting it. And finally, at the end of November, my husband, who I've known since before, even when I was a young adult, he had told me, because he remembered how I was. He said, you know, all this searching for yourself, you're like way, way off. And I finally got the courage to ask him, what am I missing? And he told me, he goes, you're missing your carefree self. You used to just be so carefree about everything, and just something needed to be done, you took care of it. You didn't complain. You just did your thing. You weren't anal about stuff, you know. So I had to ask myself to bring some of those memories back so that I could remember even who I was before. And that it was a slow start. And then in June of this year, 2015, when we had that grand cross in the astrological weather, um, boy, that's when my major change started happening, and it's just been great. I can say now that my life has really totally restarted. I have had a full reboot, and now I'm in the reconstruction phase, but I feel really good. I'm really excited, and this all just happened since September 19th of this year, so just earlier this week, Monday. And yeah, I've been finding out more about my Pluto, and as well as some of the other stuff. Like I have grand trines, I have a pentacle, I have, excuse me, a couple grand T squares, and yada yada yada. Everybody's got all kinds of stuff, whatever. Um, but it's really helping me to really see who I am. Like, okay, before, even though I kind of looked at the outer planets, I didn't think of them really as personal, but now that I've actually done a little more deeper research, I find that Pluto, Neptune, Uranus not as much, but Pluto, Neptune, Mars, Sun and Moon, Saturn, and Venus are all in aspect with each other in one way or another. Some of it's grand trine, some of it's kite, some of it's, just by sextile or whatever within that. Um, and the signs are mostly, Pisces and Libra. The opposite of Libra being Aries, which happens to be where my Chiron is. And you have intercepted sign, which is great. I'm loving it now that I'm getting it, because part of that is with Scorpio, which, Pluto, Mars. In studying Vedic astrology, they count the two highest planets, highest degreed planets is very important. And for me, that happens to be Venus and Mars. And Venus is in a grand trine with Saturn and Pluto. Mars is part of the kite, and also part of a grand T square, so that's why I'm saying I have a lot more that I want to share about some of these things, and how that they have the experiences I'm having of them in my life, including the negative experience from before to the more positive to now. Because I just, think that it's good to share this kind of stuff for others who may have some of these positions that, I mean, there's a whole generation of Pluto and Libra. I'm not the only one. My husband has it there as well. So, yeah, I just mostly wanted to speak on the sun one because I do know that when Pluto conjuncts your sun, or at least for me, it's going to like you're going to go through a death and rebirth. Well, I know I went through a major death and rebirth on who I am, what my identity is, how I feel about myself, um, and being courageous enough to be me no matter what and not have to worry about what everybody else thinks. So, yeah, and I'm learning more and more, and I want to talk on these different things separately. So, I just wanted to at least get this video out there. I plan on doing some more hopefully next week. Today, I just had some free time, and I'm not even worried about time on my videos anymore. So, yeah, like I said, it's mostly for me. If somebody else listens to this and it helps them, great. I'm so happy for you. And if not, you know what? That's all right too. Have a great weekend and thank you for watching.